treat each other with respect, doing something you love. You build something that endures. When you set your sights on the long term, you make decisions that protect the most valuable things on Earth. Our mission? To do it right, to never compromise, to make the best windows and doors you can buy in the most sustainable way possible, from seed to delivered product. Sierra Pacific. Windows that never compromise.
What I think is amazing about our company and about what we do is that it really gives us the opportunity to change lives and affect people in everything that they do. Nowhere is that more personal than in the living environment or in the working environment. Our mission is to use technology to simplify lives and simplify spaces. Infrastructure technologies, aesthetic technologies, functional technologies. And we kind of sit at the center of connecting all of those in a meaningful way.
History, when we pause to let it wash over us, can change us, inspire us, generation upon generation, as we carry the torch. The legacies of craftsmen echo more loudly than ever, calling us back to craft, quality, beauty. Forms and shapes from countless civilizations can be refined and made new again, infusing centuries of inspiration into every nook. Handmade, tactile, unique. Made from timeless, environmentally friendly materials with techniques that are familiar, ancient, grounded. Interpreting and reflecting the vast natural world while also leaving it undisturbed. Remnants of history surround us. They remind us of the legacy we build upon. Decorators Supply, where art, architecture, and construction unite. Adorning and completing built environments since 1883.
Hi everyone, my name is Sheetal Bhagat. I'm the brand owner of Spice Note Tequila. Today we're featuring the cinnamon infusion in your cocktail that we're making for the Acanthus Award ceremony. So in thinking about classical architecture and its relationship to the architecture of a cocktail, Vitruvius's three principles of classical architecture come to mind, right? The strength or the durability, the utility, and the aesthetic of architecture. So how does that tie into our cocktail? Well, our strength is going to come from the actual spirits that we use. The utility or functionality of the cocktail will be balanced with the spirit and the acid and sugar. So it makes it a usable or functional or edible cocktail. And then of course, the aesthetic will come from our pretty glass, our beautiful garnish. So as you can see, there's a lot of connections between classical architecture and the architecture of a cocktail. So let's get started. We'll use 2 ounces of Spice Note cinnamon infused tequila, 1 ounce of orange liqueur, and I'm using Cointreau here. You can use any orange liqueur that you have in your bar. 1/4 ounce of allspice liqueur, and this is one of my favorite brands for allspice liqueur. This will be a workhorse in your bar and your kitchen. You can actually bake with this too. It's such a versatile spirit for the fall and for the winter. So you've got 1/4 ounce of that. 1 ounce of lime juice. Fresh is always best. We'll do 1/2 ounce of agave syrup, and if you don't have agave syrup, you can always use simple syrup. You do 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. Shake, shake, shake. I have some powdered cinnamon and sugar mixed together. I'm going to take a little orange wedge, dip it in there, and lay it right on.
Chicago has a very robust, confident voice that speaks about its modernist heritage. The lineage of Wright and Sullivan and Mies is touted to the exclusion of the legacy of people like Benjamin Marshall, Daniel Burnham, Howard Van Doren Shaw, and the ICA can speak to that other.
For us in Chicago, our main focus has been education. We have lectures, we have had tours, classes, seminars, intensives.
The ICA has served a wonderful role for so many people who are interested but maybe not even architects, or for folks who might have come from a very different educational background who might have a sense that there's something that was missing in that education.
From the moment that we started the Chicago Institute of Classical Architecture and Art, one of our goals was to have an award program.
I think the importance of having the Acanthus Award is it allows architects who are looking for a direction of their work to see exemplary work by others and to aspire to that.
Good evening, and welcome to the 8th Annual Acanthus Awards. We did not want to miss an opportunity to celebrate the incredible work being created in the Chicago Midwest region. We want to give a shout out to our great friend and supporter, Peter Miller, who is scheduled to be our live and in-person MC. Pete, we look forward to seeing you for next year's Acanthus Awards. We have a lively program in store for you, so pour yourself a cocktail and stay tuned. You'll see 12 winning projects in all, of many building types, both residential and commercial, a classical cornucopia. Many thanks to all of you who entered, and congratulations to all of tonight's winners. I'd like to introduce your host, Scott Fortman, President of the Chicago Midwest Chapter of the ICAA.
Good evening, and welcome to the 8th Annual Acanthus Awards. As with so many events this year, we've decided to make tonight's celebration a virtual celebration. My name is Scott Fortman, President of the Chicago Midwest Chapter of the ICAA. The Institute of Classical Architecture and Art is the leading national nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing the practice and appreciation of the classical and vernacular traditions in architecture and the allied arts. This year has been a challenging year for everyone, and instead of canceling our awards program, we decided to continue virtually. Our ongoing weekly virtual sketching series has been very well received. Each week, we feature a new subject and provide reference images on Monday for the selected building or focus. I continue to be amazed at the talent and creativity of the submissions. In October, we held a well-received virtual panel discussion entitled The Art of Collaboration with architect Phil Liederbach, interior designer Frank Ponterio, and landscape architect Ed Hollander. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Currently, our second annual design competition is underway. This is open to all ICAA members and member firms. We are also pleased to announce the ICAA Student Architecture Award, generously sponsored by Richard H. Driehaus. The ICAA Student Architecture Award will grant 3 awards: $5,000 first place, $3,000 second place, and $1,000 third place for excellence in architectural design work. Thank you to Mr. Driehaus for your continued generous support of the Chicago Midwest chapter. Finally, initiated in 2017, the Lumenarts Fellowship in Architecture is presented by our chapter in partnership with the Union League Club-affiliated Lumenarts Cultural Foundation. The fellowship is sponsored by Lumenarts through the generous support of Jay Morton and Mike Phillips. This year's award winner, Taylor Schmidt, is a student at Notre Dame School of Architecture going into his senior year. Thank you for joining us as we recognize the best of classical and traditional projects in our region. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors. Because of your generous support, we are able to bring quality programming like tonight's awards to our members and the public at large. Through your continued support and friendship, we can further the mission of the ICAA. Thank you.
We would like to take a moment to describe the jury process for our awards. The Acanthus Awards are open to all design professionals, students, and artisans practicing within the boundaries of the Chicago Midwest region of the ICAA. Projects submitted for consideration may be from anywhere in the world, but must have been completed after January 1st, 2010. Student work can be submitted by a currently enrolled or a recently graduated student. The jurors are chosen for their expertise in classical and traditional architecture, as well as being outside of the Midwest region. Once the winners were selected, the jurors were tasked with selecting the best of the awards. This project would become the recipient of the Acanthus Award of Arete, a project that truly embodies the qualities and craftsmanship inherent in classical architecture. Now, we would like to introduce our jurors from the New England chapter of the ICAA. David Andriozzi, the jury chair, Gregory Lombardi, and Michael Carter. Jury chair David Andriozzi is the current president of New England ICAA. He is an award-winning architect who started Andriozzi Architects in 1988. Specializing in historically based residential architecture, expressive of its sense of place, attentive to its detail and proportion, and timeless in its beauty. Gregory Lombardi is a licensed landscape architect and the president and founding principal of Gregory Lombardi Design Incorporated. From offices in Cambridge and Chatham, Massachusetts, he serves a national clientele as the driving creative force behind each custom property. Michael Carter is principal design at Carter & Company, a residential interior design firm located in Boston's Back Bay. In 2016, he was inducted into the New England Design Hall of Fame and has twice been the recipient of the ICAA Bullfinch Award. And now for the presentation of the awards.
In the category of Allied Arts and Craftsmanship, the Acanthus Award goes to An American House, Stone Craftsmanship, It Takes a Village. Liederbach and Graham Architects, Joseph Mikulek, Tom Van Etten, Martin McDonough, Richard Stahl, Jonathan Washington, Butch Coleman, Giovanni D'Angelo, Luciano Grassi, Angelo Angelov, Ismail Mota, Val Petrov, and Jim Belilov. Accepting the award today from Liederbach and Graham are Michael Graham, James LaRue, and Suzanne Winters.
So I guess in designing the exterior, was sort of inspired by the idea of permanence, building something that looked like it had been there forever and could be there forever more in the future. Sort of starting at the top of the building with the kind of crowning it with the copper detailing, a slate, heavy slate roof, and then working that down to, either a combination of sort of load-bearing masonry elements and elements that look like they're load-bearing masonry even when they're in the veneer. So I think it was the idea of permanence and how that goes from the top to the bottom of the building.
So right above on the apex of the front door, there's a boar carved, and the boar was always a symbol of like hospitality. So over the front door, there's this sort of symbol of hospitality that sort of that greets a first-time visitor to the house. There's a carved oak tree for strength. Over his spouse's office windows, there's a carved owl for wisdom. On the back of the house, there's a stag, and that stag symbolizes bravery. I mean, he takes risks in his business, and so that symbolizes that sort of risk-taking. And then over the family dining area, there's a sheaf of wheat, so that symbolizes abundance and hospitality again. So that iconographic program was really a very unique thing that you very rarely see actually in residential design today. For me personally, I want to start by thanking the hub that everything is wrapped around, and that's our client. And then in addition to them, the other people in his family that we designed for, his adult children, a father-in-law who lives there in the house, even the caretaker that actually lives inside the house. I want to first thank them. Then in my team, Suzanne Winters, the project architect, who's not here right now, James, who is the project coordinator and ran the whole exterior stone detailing, which is actually flawless. That I want to be extremely thankful for. But then all the collaborators that we had in terms of the craftsmen that actually worked on the house, we were just so blessed. It's such an amazing experience when everybody's rowing in the same direction. It's interesting, I go to the different shops now of the people with whom we collaborated on the job, and what's most interesting to me is almost everybody has pictures of this project up in their shop spaces because it's such a fond memory. Architecture, unlike a lot of the arts, is incredibly collaborative. So, this is, it's been an incredible project and a joy in every respect.
I think winning both awards just speaks to the nature of our very close collaboration with all the craftsmen on the job, and the fact that we were sort of pushing every trade to take their work to the level of craft.
Also in the category of Allied Arts and Craftsmanship, our second Acanthus Award goes to Chicago Skyline Eglo-Maze Mural, Simas Studios. Accepting this award, we welcome Jorge and Cindy Simas and the team from Simas Studios.
So the most unique thing regarding this project was there was an iconic image like the Chicago skyline, a mural, which you have seen quite a few murals, but this was a mural in Eglo-Maze. Eglo-Maze is back painted and gilded glass. And I don't believe I have ever seen an Eglo-Maze mural of the Chicago skyline. And when you add the elements of Art Deco, the techniques that we followed, and the faithfulness to those techniques, 100-year-old techniques, the whole thing becomes unique.
For me, the most rewarding aspect was taking all the individual elements that we, in the initial design, the references, the drawings, and having them all come and coalesce into a unified project at the very end. I mean, because it was done in different elements and then fit together like a puzzle, really. And so to see that come together was really quite rewarding.
My favorite feature is probably more than one. I enjoyed very much how the clouds were conceived and executed. I also liked the treatment of the buildings because it was, in part, it was a silhouette of the buildings. The buildings are highly recognizable, but because of the techniques that we used, some of them seem to be enveloped in a mistiness of mirroring techniques. And that is contradictory per se, but when you see it applied to a piece of artwork, it becomes clear. I enjoy that.
And my favorite part actually was how the water was handled, because that's actually done by distressing a mirror. So while so much of the project is done through paint and other elements, when you look down low, it's a little bit of a surprise to see that it's actually an actual mirror, and the reflectivity can kind of catch you off guard like that.
I liked the personal touches that the client asked for us to add into it. Like there was a W in one of the buildings, or windows for when the Cubs win. There was a Lollapalooza on a blimp, I believe, that was going by. Those little touches that the client asked us to put in were my highlights.
And I would say I love the center with the Buckingham fountain, but also the mixture of the moon gold, the white golds, the mirroring, the hand painting. It was just a much more elaborate project in that sense than many of the projects.
My favorite aspect of the project is again how everything just came together between all of the techniques of painting and gilding and mirroring. It all came together so beautifully between the buildings and the water and the boats and the trees. It was just beautiful.
And nothing broke. That was important. It was 7 panels, 5 feet by 3 feet each one, 1/8-inch glass, and it made it from the shipper to us and installed all in one piece. That was very important.
Not a single chip.
In the category of landscape design, the Acanthus Award goes to Gardens of a Revivalist Manse, Craig Bergman Landscape Design. Accepting the award for Craig Bergman Landscape Design, we have Craig Bergman and Don Bullock.
Well, I think we have a great client that our whole team has been really happy to work with, and we're ecstatic to be here.
Well, part of the inspiration really came from the architecture of the house and kind of observing European traditions of landscape, and a lot of it came from the client who intentionally gave us a program where they wanted the landscape to be a little bit more natural, a little bit more casual, to kind of to offset the formality of the house.
And the clients being world travelers, they would say, oh, we're building our dream house, so we'd love to have a little piece of this trip or a little piece of that trip. And family is so important to them, so everything was about creating these friendly, enveloping areas, often little intimate spaces away from the big house as well. I think the whole aspect of having multiple destinations to go to from the house is magical. The raised edge of the swimming pool allows for something different than the typical, and we actually took advantage of some grade changes on a very, in essence, flat Midwestern plot. So I think the biggest challenge are some of the most beautiful results, but to know of all the infrastructure that's underneath, all the beauty you see above, it's just daunting. The technology that's involved in building something that looks so natural and so easy is the thing that I take away as a favorite, because we couldn't have one without the other. To be associated with so many great people with the ICAA and the Acanthus Award program, it's an honor to be part of this and be included.
Also in the category of landscape design, our second Acanthus Award goes to Indian Wells, Hollander Design Landscape Architects. Accepting the award for Hollander Design is Ed Hollander, who is joining us via Zoom.
I think the thing about this project, which really made it unique for us, was the sense of history that we were working with from the previous incarnations on this site, as well as developing a new landscape for a new family at a new time. So wonderfully historic materials and detailing, yet being respectful to the history of the property and the landscape that was there. And I think that combination really made it for us. I think in this case, what really makes this special for us was our collaboration with both Peter Penoyer and Jacques Grange in putting together kind of a seamless interface between inside and outside. So I think our pool area, which is a beautifully simple 20 by 60 foot dark rectangle surrounded by a finely crafted band of stone, and then an absolutely clean palette of grass, a wonderfully wisteria covered pergola tying into Peter's pool house. I think that detail of that simplicity and that elegance really, in my mind, is probably the single thing about the project that is most special. The people I would really like to thank for this, are the clients for inviting us to do it, because I feel honored to have worked on something as wonderful in this, but probably Peter Penoyer and Jacques Grange, who were the people that we collaborated with on this. And I think it's the collaboration between the professions, which I think really make a wonderfully special project. And they were both great collaborators for this. And I think they get my first gratitude. The clients, of course, are collaborators. and always, always, always the craftsmen that actually install this, that take our design ideas and bring it to life in a beautiful way. If it weren't for the stonemasons and the carpenters and the landscape contractors and all of those people that are responsible for taking our plans and bringing them to life, it wouldn't be as wonderful as it is. We always love winning awards, but winning awards from the ICAA, I think we really enjoy because it is our professional colleagues. It's the architects that we work with and we collaborate with. And so it gives me special joy, and it makes me very proud to be recognized by people that I have such great respect for and that I feel as though I have learned so much from. So anytime we win an ICAA award, it means a little bit more to us because it is the peers that I respect most who are recognizing our work.
In the category of residential architecture over 5,000 square feet, the Acanthus Award goes to An American House, Liederbach and Graham Architects. R. Michael Graham, Suzanne Winters, James LaRue, Christine Tiffin, and Gabrielle Johnson. Accepting the award, we welcome Michael Graham, James LaRue, and Suzanne Winters.
So we've been a long time inspired by the English architect Edmund Lutyens. Fantastic architect, really just always an inspiration for me all the way since undergraduate school. But in addition to that, we wanted to try and make an American house, and there's a fantastic architecture firm, Mellor, Meigs & Howe, working outside of Philadelphia. They're great, their fantastic work is very much in the sort of Anglo-American tradition, and that work, I think, inspired this house more than anything else. I think this project is unique in that we conjured something in a fairly tight suburban setting that feels very much, especially with the garden that Craig Bergman created around it, feels very much like an English country house or a house that's in the suburbs of an East Coast city that's been there forever. And that was all done in a very, very compact site. So really, if you look at the aerial view of the house, you can see it's chock-a-block in a suburban neighborhood. Easy to walk to the train from there, easy to walk to the grocer from there. You know, it's super convenient as a location, but it does feel like it's out in the country, and it does feel also part of the scale and context of the actual neighborhood that it's in.
Perhaps what's most unique about the project is just how many different things it combines, especially if you look at the exterior and the interior, all the different sources of inspiration. There are some elements that are very classical. There are others that are more inspired by vernacular architecture. And then as soon as you step in the front door, you go from an exterior that looks like it's sort of been there forever to a series of rooms that are all very unique and breathtaking in their own right. And then you're out back in the backyard. And I think it's just the explosive sequence of spaces you find as you walk through the house, you'll find almost nowhere. The clients were just an absolute joy to work with.
Absolutely.
Just wonderful, wonderful people, and very trusting, and really allowed us to do our best work. They were very supportive of us doing our best. And then also the craftsmanship on every aspect of the house was just phenomenal, and it was such an inspiration to show up every day on site and to see people really focused on doing their best work. And that goes all the way into the kind of like the finish work, the pool mosaic, the stone carving, the roofing. Just everyone was really focused on doing their best work, and it really shows when you look at the project.
I guess I would add on to what James said, just walking through the house. I think it's unique that you're at the exterior of the house and it's a very traditional exterior, and you're going into the house and there's just the sequence of different spaces as you walk through. Lots of bright colors, lots of fun details. So.
In the category of residential architecture under 5,000 square feet, the Acanthus Award goes to The Lodge, Northworks Architects and Bruce Fox, Inc. Accepting this award, we have Rob Berner from Northworks joining us via Zoom, and Bruce Fox.
A lot of the inspiration was drawn from the styling of the existing house, which is designed in the Cotswold cottage style. So we drew a lot of inspiration from that, from the stone and the woodworking and the trim on the exterior, and of course the roofing, which was a special blend of clay tile. We drew a lot of inspiration from old iron furnaces from the eastern coast of Pennsylvania and some of the Midwest through Kentucky. Parts of the structure about 40 feet above grade. It was a challenge just getting materials there. Everything had to come in by barge. We actually had to create a small clearing in the ravine just to get things up from the lake. All the stone, all the masonry, all the steel was brought in that way. And then a lot of the concrete for the foundation work was actually poured over the main house. So there was just a lot of site logistics. Well, of course, the interiors that Bruce brought to the table were exquisite and beautiful and take your breath away, no doubt. He was brought to the project later in this in the design phase. So I think we had an initial vision that it was going to be a very simple space, but it became this well-crafted, almost Gothic, beautiful interior. We would, of course, love to thank the owners as well, who just trusted us with their vision and let us put together this amazing dream team and just gave us their full trust to do this amazing project and execute their vision.
Originally it was really uncomplicated and simple. And then, the client, who's so great, said to me, he said, my words to you are surprise and delight. He's like, I'd like you to surprise and delight me. And I said, okay, let's surprise and delight. I think the fact that it's so compact, it's such a unique and interesting thing to do. I mean, it's just really 2 rooms, but a freestanding structure, made of stone on a ravine. Everything about it was a challenge. So, working with Bully Andrews, the contractor, who was so amazing, and, all the people that helped us, it was, really had to come together and had to be logistically figured out so intensely to get it all to be done. There's so many people involved. On my list is Lake Forest Masonry, Salvo Roofing for the terracotta roof that we worked so hard to make it match the original house. Dynamic Windows, which did an amazing job. Northworks Architects, of course, Austin and Rob, who were fantastic. Bernhardt Woodworking. I mentioned Billy Andrews, who were the contractors who just went above and beyond, as always. Ann Kustner Lighting, Marmy Stone, sound specialists, worked with us. We did really special light, switching in there. And lastly, Apex Flooring provided, pre-finished floors for the floor and for the ceiling, because the ceiling is planked as well. So that's my list.
Before continuing on with tonight's program, we would like to take a moment to salute our host for this year's Acanthus Awards, Decorators Supply. They graciously provided us with an incredible backdrop for our awards event. All of the award winners were delighted by the authenticity, handwork, and traditional craftsmanship methods used to create exact classical architectural replicas of history's past, dating back to the Columbian Exhibition in 1893. We want to provide our viewers an opportunity to take a short stroll back through time.
Founded by Simon Strand and Richard C. Foster in Chicago in 1883, Decorators Supply is among the oldest continuously operating businesses in Chicago. Today, in its 4th generation, the firm continues the tradition of hand-fabricated plaster ornament, using only the 3 traditional ingredients of the #1 molding plaster: water and reinforcing hemp. With thousands of historic designs available in-house, Decorator Supply's uniquely skilled craftsmen continue the tradition of casting from historic handmade molds and custom-made new molds for contemporary creations. Using its own woodworking shop, Decorator Supply creates the foundations of its other renowned and ancient product, composition ornament, more commonly known as compo, mixing only traditional natural ingredients into a putty-like consistency that is pressed into the many thousands of available historic in-house reverse-cut hardwood molds. Decorator Supply is uniquely suited to create superior interior design, to decorate interiors recalling the style inspired by Age of Elegance.
Thank you again, Decorator Supply. And now, back to the presentation of the awards.
In the category of institutional or commercial architecture, the Acanthus Award goes to Christ Chapel, Duncan G. Stroik, architect. Accepting the award is Duncan Stroik, who is joining us via Zoom.
So I think my favorite detail about the project is the barrel vault, which is made up of 327 5-foot square coffers, and they're supported by arched vaults sitting on huge Doric entablatures in the round. I guess the thing that was most rewarding about this project was working with a university president, Dr. Arnn, who had a vision for a perfect college chapel that did everything he could ever want. And I love that challenge because it pushed me to design a building that was a multitasker. And this is a multitasking building that also, I believe, aspires to be beautiful. And that was the great experience, was to work with him and try to fulfill his needs. There's so many people to thank on this project, but I do believe that our contractor did one of the finest new churches in America, Wigand Construction, and the masonry team was spectacular, doing things that have hardly ever been done in probably 60 years in America, and they were led by Donnie and Zach. They saw that this was not just another building, it was a sacred building, and it was built to, to last for eternity, and so they gave it their best shot. So what were the challenging aspects of the project? The first was to design a church for 1,400 people, but that wouldn't feel too vast for 600. And we did that by creating more of a basilica form with a large nave that seats 600, but side aisles and balconies that add another 600 to the seating. And the second challenge was to do something that was very American and very inspired by the great churches of England, such as St. Paul's in London, or some of the Gibbsian churches, and yet do it on a very simple Midwestern campus. So what was my inspiration behind the project? We were very inspired by John Oxendorf to do a domed portico, domed front porch, and to do it in brick. And so I hired John, and he was my consultant, and we had an amazing structural engineer, LKL out of Toledo, Mark Kennedy, and we all worked together to do this thing, which we've done for thousands of years, but we really haven't done it much in the last 50 years, which is to build a masonry dome again in America. So this 32-foot dome, it's not that huge, is out of brick, has a brick ribs, and has a central kind of keystone, which is where the chandelier comes out of, and it's all exterior. And so, why? I thought you didn't want to do a brick dome, Duncan. I thought on the outside it made sense, because here it gets the weather and the cold and the rain and the snow and the pigeons, and so this is a great place to use a tile dome, or in this case, a brick dome. And so I thank MIT and John for pushing me to do that and for helping me do it.
In the category of preservation and restoration, the Acanthus Award goes to Chicago Union Station, Getch Partners. Accepting the award for Getch Partners, we have Len Kurowski.
There were two things that were most rewarding about this project. It was on opening day with the reveal of the space, watching visitors new to Chicago come through and marvel at the space, seeing light being cast over the plaster ornaments, over the stone carvings, with light raking over them. The second part of it, I think it's exciting with the growing West Loop neighborhood and the increase of passengers using the station, to see people coming back to the station to see the space filled with light and activity and people. Who would I like to thank? There are kind of three groups I'd like to thank. First off is the ownership team, including Amtrak and project managers from CBRE. I'd like to thank my own colleagues within the office, our design team, including Klein and Hoffman, ESD, lighting designers, Charter Sills. But I think the most important group to thank in all of this are the great Chicago fabricators and craftsmen. A lighting firm on the south side of Chicago, which was a cottage industry of people spinning brass, casting metals, and blowing glass. A stone firm from the south side of Chicago, carving Roman travertine, carving limestone, and the specific tradesmen, the plasterers, working in a lot of detail, the painters, Evergreen Architectural Arts, Oosterbun Painting, for their sort of careful, ongoing attention to detail. The painting systems in some ways were simple, but when you're replicating them for miles and miles, it was miles of work. So I think these are all firms that I both look at as Chicago treasures and tradesmen, and all to be appreciated.
Also in the category of preservation and restoration, our second Acanthus Award goes to St. Columbian Catholic Church, Conrad Schmidt Studios. Accepting the award for Conrad Schmidt Studios is Rick Statz.
Initially, we were asked to come down to the church as more part of a repair and repaint type of a project. And it was in preparation, though, for this visit that we were able to come across some historic photographs of the original historic decorative scheme. We brought this information to our first meeting when we got to meet with our clients. And we shared this information with them. We also then shared the differences between approaching the project as a repair and repaint as opposed to a recreation of a specific decorative scheme from the church's history. And I think it was the whole process of working with our client in guiding them towards making the decision to restore the historic nature of the church that was really the most exciting. I'd like to take this opportunity to first and foremost thank Father Ben Naib, the pastor of St. Columban Catholic Church. He was instrumental in developing the project, and he had the passion to work with his committees to move it from being a repair and repaint into the type of project that affects the worship experience for not only the existing parishioners there, but future parishioners. I mean, the interior of a Catholic church is unlike any other type of Catholic church. The Mass is something that is going to excite all the senses, the mind, hearing, but also visually. And when you use the architecture and you bring back a decorative scheme that was meant to enhance that architecture and thus enhance the worship experience, you make a profound impact on people's lives and people's lives in the future. And the fact that he had that passion, he had that direction, and he had the fortitude to start the process and continue it all the way to the end, I think we owe him a lot of thanks. I'd just like to add that we are very proud to be here today. I want to thank you all for inviting us here and presenting us with such a great award. Thank you.
One of the missions of the Chicago Midwest chapter of the ICAA is to provide educational programs that support the tenets of classical and traditional design. It is in the spirit of that mission that the Student Acanthus Award has been created. Any student project which utilizes a classical or traditional design approach was eligible for consideration. The Acanthus Awards Committee has created 2 categories of awards for student projects, recently graduated and currently enrolled. All projects submitted for consideration in the currently enrolled category require the student to be enrolled at an accredited institution. In addition to the Acanthus Award, students currently enrolled at the institution where the work was completed are eligible for a $2,000 scholarship. This one-time scholarship shall be presented to the university in the name of the student to help offset the educational expenses for that student. In the category of student design project recently graduated, both of our student award winners are joining us via Zoom. Our first student Acanthus Award goes to a new terminal for high-speed rail, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Samuel Fisher. Work completed at the University of Notre Dame.
So my inspiration from this project was the time I spent studying in Europe and living within the traditional city on a daily basis. In addition, having the opportunity to travel by the high-speed rail system they have and seeing the way that it can transform travel as well as our cities. What I find unique about this project, for me personally, being my thesis project, was an opportunity to study and design within my own parameters. Second, I feel that it's unique in the way that it attempts to bring together traditional architecture and technology in modern transit. I think what I found most rewarding about the project was having an opportunity to work within the bounds of a city that I have a personal connection to and reimagine a space that I've been to many times. My favorite feature or detail about the project is the inscription above the main entrance of the train station that reads the state motto "Forward," which I feel is very symbolic for the project and appropriate for a train station. I would like to thank, first and foremost, the Chicago Institute of Classical Architecture and Art, also the faculty at the University of Notre Dame, specifically my thesis advisor, John Miller. Coming straight out of school, it's a great honor to be recognized by the ICAA for my work and to be put alongside so many great architects and designers. Is a true honor.
Also in the category of student design project recently graduated, our second student Acanthus Award goes to the Immigration Station, Designing for Dignity at the United States-Mexico border. Caroline Colella, work completed at the University of Notre Dame.
The inspiration for my Bachelor of Architecture thesis project, the Immigration Station, Designing for Dignity at the US-Mexico border, came from a visit I had this past year to Ellis Island while interning in New York City. The ability to walk the hallowed halls of Ellis Island really made me think about the difference between immigration at the turn of the century and immigration today. These migrants that were coming via boat to New York City were greeted by grandeur and the symbol of what it meant to be American at that time. Today, there is no architecture for the immigration happening on our southern border. And through this project, I'm hoping to address the role architecture could play in changing the experience of immigration, not only for the migrants and refugees fleeing to our southern border, but also for the community receiving them, in form of course, processing of immigration and also addressing immigrant needs at the get-go. I could not be more grateful to the Midwest chapter of the ICAA for bestowing upon me this award this year. I am honored to join the previous ranks of Notre Dame alumni who have also won the Acanthus Award in the past. Honored to be among them and grateful for this award. I would also like to thank the School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame for instilling in us principles and ideas that will make the world better due to our education in traditional and classical architecture and urbanism. Furthermore, I need to thank my advisor, Professor Sean Nolte, for going on the journey of the Immigration Station with me. I could not be more grateful for his constant support, design advice, and encouragement throughout the entire process. I also need to thank the Center for Ethics and Culture at the University of Notre Dame in their support of my research throughout the entire project. In addition, they sent me on research trips to Chiapas, Mexico, and the School of Architecture helped me travel to El Paso, without which none of the project would have been possible. And lastly, and most importantly, I would like to thank my parents who housed me and brought me home to do my architectural thesis project when coronavirus hit mid-thesis semester. Without the grace they allowed me, none of this would have been possible, and I could not be more grateful.
On behalf of Samuel Fisher, Caroline Colella, and the ICAA Chicago Midwest Chapter, a donation will be made to the School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame.
Before we announce the final award of the evening, please welcome Anki Barnes.
Good evening, and congratulations to the 8th Annual Acanthus Award winners. My name is Anki Barnes. I'm a partner of Barnes Vance Architects and a national board member of the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. We at the ICAA believe strongly that the unity of architecture, design, craftsmanship, and landscape are vital to building lasting and meaningful places. And as such, we offer extensive educational programming that approaches design holistically with all these elements in mind. In January of 2020, thanks to a generous $1 million grant from the Gerard B. Lambert Foundation, the ICAA was able to significantly expand its focus on landscape as it relates to architecture, launching the first of its kind programming for designers, students, and enthusiasts, with particular emphasis on educating the next generation, the Bunny Mellon curricula. This curricula, the first to be named in honor of Bunny Mellon, honors her commitment to landscape design and her deeply held belief that architecture is firmly linked to its surrounding landscape. Highlights of the curricula include continuing education courses, public programs and lectures, with an accompanying video series that brings the curricula to tens of thousands more, and I'm sure many of you have seen some of these. With this visionary grant, the ICAA is able to further its mission and expand its audience significantly. Pleased to say that as a member of the Bunny Mellon Curricula Committee, it's my pleasure to share this sneak peek of the latest program in this groundbreaking curriculum. The Chicago Midwest Chapter ICAA has produced a virtual film called From the Designer's Eye, a Tour of the Gardens of 900. Craig Bergman of Craig Bergman Landscape Design leads us on this special tour. The Gardens at 900 are a sensitive renovation and interpretation of the original entry building complex and gardens of the historic Elawa Farm, which was originally designed by architect David Adler in 1917 for A. Watson and Elsa Armour. The garden at 900 is an excellent example of how quickly a landscape can be transformed with a focused and collaborative vision. As is appropriate, the property has been recognized and designated as a State of Illinois Historic Landmark. The Chicago Midwest Chapter of the ICAA will be premiering this film in early 2021, and we hope you enjoy the sneak peek.
I think the first thing was when we got here, we both had a gut reaction that, wow, this is special. We decided to kind of look at it as a combination of a workplace and a home place. Historically, this was the entry complex to a gentleman's farm owned by a wealthy farmer. This was A. Watson and Elsa Armour. For what the Armours wanted to show the public as they drove by their farm, they hired David Adler. Adler built what was called the entry complex, which is where we are, which was 2 matching gatehouses and a motor house. It was meant to live a romantic farm life, hence the scale of the brick columns, the low pitch of the roofs, the materials, the old brick, the stone sills, the slate roofs, the copper. As one comes in off the road, it should be, for me, like an aha moment because you've arrived. The gardens that flank the 50-foot square of paving are meant to be simple. For me, the motor court is all about honoring the buildings. at the northwest corner of the parking lot. We have an old iron gate that we reclaimed from a job in Kenilworth, coming through the garden gate, meandering down, in essence, a green hallway. Like all of our gardens here, I like them to be good representations of beauty and horticulture. The shade garden to me is it's the wildest garden that we have, and it's intended to make the visitor or the person traversing the path feel like a little kid. The pool is a new construction. We actually added that the third year that we were here. I wanted people to feel like they could get kind of lost in the natural setting. We're always using our garden as a laboratory and kind of an R&D center. I love that we're all in one space and we still have auxiliary space upstairs. This building was built with much more function than I think maybe even Adler thought it could have. I think that living with architecture, it makes you think differently about all other architecture. This place has taught me to slow down and look.
And now, for the big award of the evening, the Acanthus Award of Arete.
This award was created to single out and uniquely honor a project that exhibits the quality of arete, a Greek word translated as excellence in fulfillment of purpose or function. The award has been designed by Matthew McNicholas of MGLM Architects, modeled by Scott Morey of Decorator Supply, and fabricated in bronze by the Wagner Foundry. The winner of the 2020 Acanthus Award of Arete is Chicago Union Station, Getch Partners. We'd like to congratulate Getch Partners and present the award of Arete to Len Kurowski.
Thank you to ICAA. This is a spectacular award. I love its detail. And thank you for the recognition, but also a challenge for us in the months and years to come. All of our cultural institutions, civic institutions, and neighborhoods have been struggling. And they will need our help moving forward. It will be a significant challenge, but I think we're all up for that challenge. Chicago has rebuilt in the past, and we look forward to rebuilding and helping our communities in the future.
Thank you all for joining us this evening, and I hope to see you again all soon in person. Good night.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you again to our sponsors for making this virtual program possible. While the program has concluded, please enjoy a few words from our sponsors for the next few minutes.
When you treat each other with respect, doing something you love, you build something that endures. When you set your sights on the long term, you make decisions that protect the most valuable things on Earth. Our mission? To do it right, to never compromise, to make the best windows and doors you can buy in the most sustainable way possible, from seed to delivered product. Sierra Pacific. Windows that never compromise.
What I think is amazing about our company and about what we do is that it really gives us the opportunity to change lives and affect people in everything that they do. Nowhere is that more personal than in the living environment or in the working environment. Our mission is to use technology to simplify lives and simplify spaces. Infrastructure technologies, aesthetic technologies, functional technologies. And we kind of sit at the center of connecting all of those in a meaningful way.
History, when we pause to let it wash over us, can change us, inspire us, generation upon generation, as we carry the torch. The legacies of craftsmen echo more loudly than ever, calling us back to craft, quality, beauty. Forms and shapes from countless civilizations can be refined and made new again, infusing centuries of inspiration into every nook. Handmade, tactile, unique. Made from timeless, environmentally friendly materials with techniques that are familiar, ancient, grounded. Interpreting and reflecting the vast natural world while also leaving it undisturbed. Remnants of history surround us. They remind us of the legacy we build upon. Decorators Supply, where art, architecture, and construction unite. Adorning and completing built environments since 1883.